I'm Leah Kitzmiller.
I'm Leah Din.
My name is Joanna Mancia.
I'm Jacob Venegas.
I'm Brooke Dryden.
I'm Darn Okel.
I am doing the history and more information about our theory and our artifact. We picked TikTok and the social cognitive theory, and according to congress.gov, on August 2nd, 2018, U.S. users of the app Musical.ly were found that their accounts had switched to TikTok, and because Musical.ly was acquired by ByteDance, which was the owner of TikTok, in November of 2017 for $1 billion. It has approximately 1 billion users, and in the United States, ByteDance is currently estimated to be worth $220 billion, and they have an office in China and then a U.S. office in Santa Monica in California. Social cognitive theory is a psychological theory that emphasizes how people learn by observing others, and a process that's known as observational learning. According to Miller, it seems obvious that humans learn it in other ways, and the most important alternative routes is learning through watching others that are demonstrating things, demonstrating certain behaviors that either are perhaps rewarded or punished for those behaviors. People gain understanding of casual relationships and expand their knowledge by operating symbolically on the wealth information derived from personal and vicarious experiences. They generate solutions to problems, evaluate their likely outcomes, and pick suitable options without having to go through the laborious behavioral search, according to Bandura.
So our research question is, how does exposure to TikTok influencers encourage users to imitate behaviors through observational learning and perceived reward? We chose this question because we think it's really, really relevant. All of us are on social media in some way, just scrolling and seeing the power of influencers, especially in terms of consumerism, setting trends and making other people want to be able to relate or do similar things that they can. So, yeah.
To further research this question, we conducted a personal survey, and then we compared it to a Pew Research study. So on our personal survey, we had 24 TikTok users ages 18 to 24 as our respondents, and the Pew Research Center had just US TikTok users. I'm sure it was more than 24. It's probably very large. Our main use, we asked a question of what people's main use of using TikTok was, and ours was entertainment. In fact, 75% of respondents said that mainly they go on TikTok for entertainment, and that lines up with the Pew Research Center as well. They said that 95 of TikTok users said that they go on the app for entertaining, which was pretty interesting. As well, I also asked a few more questions to further go into this topic under entertainment. I asked, what type of creator or influencer do you watch the most? This was a free response question, and the ones that came up under entertainment most often were fashion, lifestyle, food, sports, wellness, and all those type of things. To further go into that question, I asked, why do you watch the above creator or influencer on TikTok the most? Two things that came up notable but not too often were it fits their interest and it's what comes up on their feed. But the main response was inspiration. 9 out of 24 responses said that. That was the most repetitive answer, which inspiration, in our opinion, supports the theory of social cognitive theory, because you have to observe the behavior of others they admire, watching TikTok influencers, scrolling on your feed. Examine the outcome of the behavior, were they rewarded or punished when you were watching them, and assess their identification with the influencer. How do you relate to them? Are you the same age? What are your interests? All that type of thing. And they also have to evaluate the ability to perform the behavior they witness, the self-efficacy. Do they think they have the skill? And see if they have the motivation to attempt the skill that they watched on TikTok.
Okay, so after conducting an analysis, data that have been obtained that concisely depicted that TikTok does influence its users, but not in a particularly commonly misinterpreted way. The majority of social media platform users tend to use the media outlets as entertainment. And the majority of them tend to get inspired by the influence or videos that they view. In addition, this concludes that the users get inspired rather than just copying the behavior of the creator of the video. In addition, it is supported by the study conducted by Bazell, which concluded through their analysis that TikTok does not heavily influence the user's actions. And ultimately, TikTok tends to influence how people think for the majority and share videos of what the user already enjoys watching, but it's not influence them to act on them. Okay, so basically just to talk about the slides. So from the first bullet point, we have the data depicts that TikTok does influence users, but not in a strong way. And the majority of TikTok users actively use the platform for entertainment purposes, which is highlighted throughout the study, and supports what my peers have said. And a lot of individuals reported in surveys that they felt inspired by their favorite videos of creator of choice rather than just acting on them. It was more inspired by the specific content. And the users tend to create a connection with the creators they relate to rather than just viewing someone that they just found on the platform. And the social media platform TikTok tends to help create opinions and also create motivation to the users.
Okay, I'm doing the theory support, and our results support social cognitive theory. Many users said they feel inspired by influencers. Users follow creators that match their interests. Influencers receive likes, views, and positive feedback. This makes behavior seem successful and worth copying. As a result, user may imitate what they see on TikTok. Okay, and then our findings support social cognitive theory, which explains that people learn behavior through observation, imitation, and modeling others. On TikTok, users are constantly exposed to influencers, and our survey shows that many participants watch these creators because they feel inspired by them. This suggests that users are not passively scrolling, but just actively observing trends, lifestyles, and stuff that they find appealing. In addition, many participants report that they follow influencers who align with their personal interests, values, or aesthetics. This increases identification, which is a key part of social cognitive theory. When individuals feel connected to or similar to an influencer, they are more likely to imitate their behavior, whether that's fashion, clothes, speech, habits, or even options. Another important factor is reinforcement. On TikTok, users can clearly see influencers receiving large amount of likes, views, positive comments. This serves as a form of social reward, showing them certain behaviors are approved and encouraged by others because of this. Many users may feel motivated to copy these behaviors in order to gain similar attention. Our findings also suggest that repeated exposure strengthens this effect. The more often the user sees certain trends or behaviors being rewarded, the more normal and desires those behaviors become. Over time, this can shape not only what the users do, but also how they think and what they value. Overall, our data highlights key components of social cognitive theory, including observation, learning, identification, and reinforcement. This demonstrates that TikTok is more than just a form of entertainment. It plays a powerful role in influencing others and decision-making in everyday life.
Okay, each member of our group contributed different parts of the research process, including introducing the artifact and the history of the theory, defining our research question, collecting and analyzing the survey data, and interpreting our findings through social cognitive theory. In summary, our project examined how TikTok may influence users through social cognitive theory. From our survey of college-aged users, we found that most participants use TikTok primarily for entertainment, but they also reported feeling inspired by the creators they follow. This suggests that TikTok may not directly change behavior in a measurable way, but instead shapes what users find appealing or worth watching, and by proxy worth imitating. In terms of social cognitive theory, this aligns with the early stages of observational learning, such as attention, identification, and motivation. However, our study does have limitations. The sample size was quite small, only 24 people, and focused on the narrow college age range group that we are a part of, which limits the generalization of good experiments or good theories. Additionally, our data was self-reported, no way to directly, I guess, confirm that what these people are saying are true. So if we had more time and more resources, namely money, we could conduct a control experiment with participants randomly assigned and controlled for as is appropriate for normal experimentation. We would randomly assign different groups, different levels of TikTok exposure, including our control group would be no TikTok exposure, and then different ranges of daily TikTok exposure over the course of maybe 2 or so weeks. Through that, we would identify causal effects of social influence because it allows the researchers to control exposure and reduce bias in observational data. This has been seen in the Stanford study by Taylor and Eccles in 2017. Doing this, we would do our survey as we did with this experiment before the 2-week period and then after the 2-week period to see the differences of the answers from all our groups. So we could better see how observational learning affects behavioral change. Overall, our findings suggest TikTok plays a role in shaping user perceptions and inspiration, but further research is needed to understand how that influence translates into real-world behavior.